all profit is value extraction, and that means that all profit is theft from you.
Corporate America is on welfare, and we've got to get them off welfare.
The last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary, and you're gonna have to keep on saying that.
Hi everyone, welcome to Cars and Comrades, your only socialist car podcast. My name is Bryant. Today we've got Brandon and Connor. I believe Zach is moving right now, so couldn't be with us. But we've got a news episode. We're going to cover all the news that's happened in the last few months since we did a news episode, so all the automotive stuff that's interesting to us at least. But before that, we're going to do some project car update. Before that, we're going to do some project car updates. So I want to say it's Connor's turn, but anyone know any different?
Hey, Connor's got a lot to go through, so let's just give him...
Yeah.
So, starting with me, I'm going to go ahead and start with the Camaro. So, on the Camaro, I've had a busy few weeks and or months. Been trying to get it ready to be sold, and that's been a whole process because the car fucking hates me. So, the car has made it very difficult to become sellable. On that note, let me tell you about all of that. So first, I had some issues with the Nissan. I was getting it ready for an upcoming drift event, which happened last weekend, and so I had to have the car go to the shop, whatever, and I took the Camaro out of town to go visit my dad, which I didn't want to do. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. I know the car drives, and it's fine, but like... every mile I drive this car is a chance for something bad to happen. And what do you know? Something bad happened. So I was actually driving. I left after work on a Friday. And I took the Camaro. And I'm like, okay, this is stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm driving. It's late at night. And this happened to be one of the nights where you could see the Northern Lights. And actually, I messaged our little group chat for Cars and Comrades. I told everybody, I was like, hey, make sure you go see the Northern Lights if you can. And gosh, I don't remember if I can't remember if I said anything in our group chat or not. But anyway, I pulled over at a rest stop to see if I could see the Northern Lights a little bit better while not driving, because that wasn't exactly the safest way to view them. And it was very fortunate that I chose the place to pull over that I did, because as I was coming off the off-ramp, one of my fucking calipers jumped off the fucking wheel and ground into my wheel.
You said that. I didn't realize you were in the Camaro when it happened.
Yes! It has now happened to the Z twice and the Camaro once. And I have to admit, this is a caliper that I took off probably 4 or 5 years ago. But that's only like a few thousand miles ago. So this is a caliper that I took off at some point and put back on, so this one probably is my fault, but I don't know what the fuck I was doing wrong. I can tell you from now on, I will never put in a caliper bolt without, like a caliper bracket bolt, without Loctite for the rest of my fucking life. But, yeah, so the same thing that happened to the Z happened to the Camaro. So I presume it is my fault that it happened, but... yeah, it was a bummer. It happened late at night, and I got stranded, basically. So I was at a rest stop, and I had to take, like, a lift to a nearby hotel to stay the night until I can get back there and fix it in the morning, which I did. It wasn't a hard fix. I just went to a Menards in the area, grabbed a fucking bolt, and took a lift back out there, and, fixed it in 5 minutes. So it wasn't too bad, but if you don't have the bolt... you can't fix it on the side of the road in the middle of the night. So, yeah, that happened. It did grind a little bit inside my fancy wheel, which was a bummer, but, whatever. That's going to be the next person's problem to deal with. So, anyway, I fixed the car, and I was able to get to my dad's place, and, the rest of the weekend was fine, but... that's just kind of how it goes with that car. Then, of course, I drove it home, no issues. I then I drove it to, I think I went out to go pick up food or something later that night. So it got home, everything was good. I went out to go pick up some food, and what do you know? The fucking check engine light came on. Which, I mean, that's what I was worried about happening. I was like, God damn it. I was hoping that the next person could get whatever engine light is waiting in there. But that's not how it worked. So it was a code P0410, which is on this car for a secondary air system, which is a system I don't fully understand. It's kind of just, something with the exhaust, and I don't know. It does something or other. It's like emissions related, I think.
Like an air pump or whatever that
Yes.
pumps air into the exhaust?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that. So as soon as I got the code, I was like, oh, that's probably those things on my exhaust that are like totally blocked off. I'm guessing like this system was deleted. Sure enough, that's what it was. So like the system was deleted on the car since I bought it. I didn't delete it. So I've put, I don't know, almost 25,000 miles on the car. I've rebuilt the engine in that time. And not once has it ever thrown a fucking engine code for that. But you know what? This was the day. Right before I'm ready to sell it, this was the day that it had to pop on. So I had that put back in. I went to the shop and I just said, make the engine light go away. Install whatever the fuck needs to be installed. Just please, God, make this engine light go away. Which they did. So it was good and great. And I was all set to pick up the car and bring it to the consignment place to get fucking sold. But there was a little bit more bad news. So in the time sitting at the shop, they fixed it and they got the system put in, check engine light off, and everything was good. But the tech at the shop ended up he went to work on his he's got an old Land Rover or Range Rover or something, which I'm like, oh, that's a bad. Good luck with that project. It's going to need a lot of work. Anyway, he was getting it ready to work on, and he ended up backing that into the Camaro a little bit.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, so
No, that's not what you do.
no. So it scuffed up the fender, it broke a corner light on the front bumper, and it put a little tear in the front bumper as well. So, and added some stress cracking and whatnot. So I was like, all right, well, that sucks. But honestly, I was like, look, I don't want to be an asshole about it. I'm like, it is what it is. I looked at it and I'm like, well, it's not enough for me to replace the bumper. So I'm just going to go up there with a buffer and we're going to buff the shit out of it and hope for the best. So yesterday, I showed up to the shop, which yesterday was a Saturday. I showed up to the shop with my buffer and my, pads and my compounds and all that shit. So they had replaced the corner light. And looking at it, I was like, okay, it's doable. I showed up with some wet sanding stuff too. And I wet sanded off a bunch of, most of the driver's side fender up to about the back of the wheel. So not where it comes down, but from there to the top, to the front corner of the car, I wet sanded. And I put special attention in a few key areas that had some imperfections caused by the scuffing from the car. So I wet sanded, I buffed it, I polished it, and it came out looking okay. Not too bad. The tear in the bumper wasn't that bad. It's probably about 3 to 4 inches long, but honestly, it's really low down, and it's minor enough that it wasn't that noticeable. There's other imperfections in the paint. It's kind of it's fine. But the buffing did take most of the shit out. So it was fine. The dude we were joking around. I mean, he's the tech there. He's got a drift car and stuff, and we've drifted together and stuff. So he's cool, and he's like, oh man, I was like, yeah, I know shit happens, man. But he was like, oh, I couldn't believe it that the car was finally ready to sell, and I backed into it. I was like, yeah, it happens, whatever, we'll fix it. So, yeah, I fixed it, and then I had an appointment at the consignment place. I had to really rush, and it was pouring rain, by the way. I forgot to mention that. It was fucking pouring rain all day. So, I'm out there wet sanding in the rain, and then I brought it in the shop to buff it and all that, and then I took it to the car wash to clean it up as best I could, even though, like, it's pouring rain, and I'm at the car wash, which is already kind of fucking stupid, but, like, I was like, well, I have to wash it before I bring it to the fucking place, because they're going to inspect this car, and, you know, I want it to look good, so brought it there, got it cleaned up, drove it to the car wash, no check engine lights, everything was good, the car looked decent, and I looked at some of the other cars there, and I was like, okay, you know what? Paint on this car isn't too bad compared to some of these that are looking for decent money. So I was like, all right, I feel good. So they did kind of look it over and whatever. What we're gonna try and do is, I think they're gonna list the car for about $22,000, and what the hopefully take home for me would be about 17, which would be phenomenal if I could get 17,000 out of this piece of shit car. They took it for a ride. They were like inspecting it and everything, and I'm like kind of like nervous the whole time. But like, then the guy's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take it for a ride," and I'm like, "Do I go with you?" Or he's like, "No, I just take it by myself." It's like, "All right, cool." Comes back, it's like, "Oh, car drives really nice," and I was like, "Great, wonderful." Yeah, I knew that. I knew it drove great. It doesn't drive great in my opinion. It drives terrible in my opinion. But like, I was like, "Cool, yeah."
It's good for a Camaro.
Yeah, it drives great for what it is.
It's like, yeah, it's great, man. I agree. It is a great car. So, yeah, they, you know, they're gonna, you know, see how you know the offers go, and you know maybe we'll have to drop the price a little bit or whatever. But like, it would be nice if I could get 17 out of this car. That would be phenomenal to me.
Yeah,
It's less than I got into it, you know, by a fair margin, but I don't have that money right now, so any money in my pocket is pretty good. So
Yeah, it's car guy math. It's when you put $20,000 into a car and then you get $10,000 back and you're happy about it.
yes, I am the embodiment of that. Yeah, it's been a long journey, and honestly, the car didn't like look out of place in that showroom. I was like, you know what, this car fits here. I think it'll do okay. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But dear fucking God, man, I just couldn't believe that. I'm like, see, I knew it. I was like, I don't want to take this car out of town because something's gonna fucking break. Then what happens? Car fucking breaks, leaves me stranded. Then the check engine light comes on. I fix that, and then somebody backs into it, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, that car has been sideswiped at least twice, possibly 3 times while I've owned it. By the way, I don't know what the hell happened before that, but yeah. Anyway, so it's in the consignment place. I'm super happy to like have it there and possibly be like ready to be sold soon. So I did it. I finally fucking did it. It took me like way too many years, but it's there, and hopefully soon it won't be my problem. So that's the Camaro.
That rules. Congratulations.
yeah, nice.
Thank you. Now for my other car, the 350Z. I'm going to try and be kind of quick, but God, I have been very busy in terms of both of these cars. Real busy since we last recorded. So the first thing is I ended up getting new wheels and tires. So I got fancy wheels finally. After all these years, I decided to go with Work T7Rs in a 2-piece configuration. So it's got like a white face and a big fat fucking like machine steel lip with it's all reflective and stuff. So it's got like a nice deep dish to it. Looks super cool, I think. But yeah, I got those, and I got pretty aggressive wheel specs. So like the offset is pretty low for what it is. That's obviously a cosmetic thing, but part of the reason I went with those specs was that's what they actually had in stock. And I was like, I could choose to either wait 3 to 4 months to get, you know, custom spec wheels, or I could buy what they have right now and make it fit, which is what I did. So I got some, you know, tires. I had them mount them at the shop, and then I got the car in and I had them put it on, and I told them, look, do whatever you got to do, align the car in such a way that the wheels fit and don't look too stupid. So in the front, they fit fucking great, phenomenal. It's perfectly fine, which is important with an angle kit that, you know, that kind of limits some of your wheel choices. But I'm pretty happy with what I got. I got 9.5-inch wide wheels plus 0 offset, so they actually still have a pretty decent like dish on them. They look pretty sweet. Then in the rear, they're a little bit more aggressive. So they're 10.5 inch wide, and they are minus 13 offset. So like that means that the center of the like wheel mounting face is 13 millimeters behind the center of the wheel. So like that pushes the wheel pretty far out, which is kind of hard to fit. And when they first put them on, I drove the car home and it was fine until I got on the highway, and then every bump I hit would cause the car to go low enough that the lip on the fender would cut ribbons out of my tires. So, so it was not good. It was not ideal. So I ended up having to roll the fenders pretty much immediately. And this was all I had the wheels and tires mounted on Wednesday, and then I had to go to the track to drift by Sunday, and actually by Saturday, because I was trying to buy another spot, because I'll get into that later. I drifted 2 days instead of 1, but I kind of had to rush to get this done, so I rolled the fenders, whole story there, but point being, I got it done, and they look okay. I think they look pretty good, although yesterday I was trying to get into my driveway, and I took like kind of an aggressive enough angle that one side got rolled a little bit more because of how I went into my driveway, which is not ideal. That's not how you want to roll fenders, but I'm probably going to have to do the same to the other side now. I think I'm going to have to raise the back of the car a little bit just to accommodate this a little bit better, because I also want to take out some of the camber. Right now, I'm at 5.5 degrees negative, and that's just a little bit too much. When I drift, I'm wearing like just the inside in the middle of the tire, and then there's like that outer third that's just like not being worn away. So I do want to take out some of the camber. So in order to do that, I'm probably going to want to raise the car another few millimeters, which is not what I want to do per se, but it's kind of what I need to do. So I'm going to have to do a whole bunch of alignment shit. And to accomplish that, I bought myself fancy toe plates so I can do alignments at home. And they'll do like camber, caster, all that shit. So stay tuned for updates about me fucking around with that.
I'm thinking about when I do the suspension on my Cutlass, I'm thinking about just doing all of that myself. How much was the kit to do that?
They were, I think it was $140
sold.
for a
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, it's great. I'm like, okay, I am sold. It comes with tape measures, and it has like a little gauge on it, so like an electric gauge to like hook onto the plate. So like the toe plates will determine like your toe in or toe out or whatever, but then you can like take the plate, flip it, and like use it to measure the caster angle or the camber angle, which is super cool. So part of the reason is like I need to do a whole bunch of alignment shit. One of the things I discovered while I went to a 2-day drift event, I ended up buying a Saturday pass because I bought a Sunday pass already. I started looking for a Saturday pass once I saw that the weather was going to be like calling for rain all day on Sunday, and this track kind of just sucks. When it's wet, it's not as fun to drift. So I ended up getting a Saturday spot off of somebody whose car broke right before the event, which is usually how you get passes like that.
I was going to say, that sounds like it's probably pretty easy to do.
Yes, it's a common occurrence. So yeah, you can usually get spots that way. So I did, and it was nice. My partner came up with me. We ended up getting like a little Airbnb in the town, and like it was kind of sweet. We brought the dog with us, and it was nice to just like have someone else there with me, so I didn't have to like go up to this track 4 hours away by myself, which is what I normally do. So it was kind of nice for that. I had some trouble at the track, and one of the things that I came across was with the angle kit, under normal conditions, I don't have any clearance issues, but when I'm drifting, your suspension flexes in just such a way that I am actually making contact with a tie rod on one side.
Yeah, I saw the picture that you posted on that.
It didn't look great.
No, it's not great. I have new tie rods, and I'm going to put in offset rack spacers, which what that does, which I should have already had that in there, but whatever, I couldn't do it. Longer story. I'm already going too long, so I don't want to explain it too much. But an offset rack spacer will go into the steering rack, and it pushes like, it'll come out of the steering rack straight, but then it has like a section that offsets. So like there's 3 extra holes And so, like, if you use the third hole to the front, it's basically like pushing your tie rod connecting point forward by like 1.5 inches or 2 inches or something. So that instead of coming back at like a steep angle back towards the steering rack, it can actually just push forward. And that way it makes your tie rod run straight, basically.
Okay.
Which that should make it so that I'm not making contact with it anymore. So that should solve that problem entirely. The other thing that I have to do, though, is one, I have to figure out why is it making contact on one side and not the other. That's a little bit of a concern. I think it might have to do with my caster angle. So for some reason, one side has an extra 2 degrees of caster, and I don't know why the shop that I paid to align it didn't take that out, because that's all adjustable with the angle kit. So I'm like, yeah, dude, that's, whatever. I'm going to do it myself at home. And again, part of the reason I have to do that at home is because on top of all the changes I've discussed before this, I also have to change the Ackerman angle. The Ackerman is basically, or Ackerman, I don't know how you properly say it, but I'm going to say Ackerman. So Ackerman is like the difference in angle between your two front wheels when you turn your car. So like when you turn your car in a normal street car, if you turn, 40 degrees, so that your tires are like, your lead tire is 40. Oh god, that doesn't make sense in a
I know what,
context.
like, I couldn't remember for sure if you were talking about what I thought you were, but you are. So if I may,
yes, go for
don't
it.
explain it. If you're listening to this, Google Ackerman angle and just figure it out, because you need a visual representation to understand it very well. It basically it has to do with the fact that like your front tires are effectively traveling at different rates and at different angles around a turn.
Yep.
So it makes it so that they're both moving in the correct way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your outside wheel has to travel is traveling in a circle that has a wider radius than the inside tire.
Yeah.
So the inside tire has to turn more. That's all it is. Simple explanation. You should Google it to learn more because it's kind of complicated a little bit. But in drifting, angle kits can allow you to reduce that difference between the tires. This has all sorts of effects in drifting and whatnot, but generally speaking, like a zero Ackerman setup means your lead tire and your rear, your outside tire are turning at the exact same angle. And in drifting, this can allow you to do longer, straighter drifts and get more angle that way, which is fine. But driving that on the street is a little bit sketchy. Not terrible. That's because guess what? Mine's set up at 0 right now because we didn't know any fucking better. It's set up at 0 when it was put in, and it's been fine. The car drives okay, but I did notice a little bit of some weird shit in turns, and I was like, that doesn't feel great, and I feel like in the rain, I don't want to have a situation where I have front tires slipping over themselves to get around a turn. That seems a little dangerous. So I'm going to change my Ackerman setting, which is like you change over a bolt in a plate that connects to a tie rod. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to explain it, but like you move over a bolt basically and it changes your Ackerman. The problem is it kicks out your toe, right? So your toe will be totally all over the fucking place when you do this. So the point being, in order for me to make this change, I'm going to have to then realign the car and change the toe. And so at the same time, I'm going to change the caster because I mentioned that one side is 2 degrees more positive than the other, and that shouldn't be that way. Then I'm going to adjust the camber in the front, and I'm going to adjust the toe in the front as well to accommodate my Ackerman change. And then while I'm there, I'm going to try and take out as much camber in the rear as I can. But I'm gonna to do all of this, I'm gonna change the heights too. Like I'm gonna raise the back of the car up a few millimeters. I think I'm gonna actually lower the car another half. I don't know. We'll see. 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch in the front because it's sitting a little bit high. And with the angle kit, when you turn it full lock, it actually jacks the front of the car up a little bit just because of how the geometry changes. It jacks it up a lot more than it normally would. So like I have plenty of fucking clearance in that respect, so I'm going to lower it there and then change the Ackerman setting, change the toe, all that shit. So I have a whole bunch of alignment shit to do on the Z is the long and short of it. So I got a new tool to do that. Then I'm going to finish up. God damn, I'm going so long. I'm sorry, guys. I'll just mention briefly I had a good time at the track. I drove really well. I did a bunch of tandem runs, like, 4 and 6 car trains and shit. Like, it was fun. I haven't driven that well in years, so it was pretty sweet. The angle kit made a big difference, and just like getting used to it was hard, but now that I'm there, I feel like my driving was really, really good. Felt better, I felt more confident, and that was good. But I did have some problems. I ended up having to call Brandon too, because I was like, I had some issues with lug nuts being stuck on the car, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I fixed it. It was fine. Classic move. Hammer a 12-point socket over the outside of it got me taken care of. So that cost me a little bit of time drifting on Saturday, but then I was able to drift most of the day Sunday until it started to rain, which it didn't rain in the morning, which they had originally predicted, so I did get some good runs in then. But the entire weekend, I did have some heat management issues, which I've had before. The real problem this time was I was losing brakes completely at the end of my runs. So like I would do a run, and then all of a sudden my brake pedal just would not respond for a good 5 to 6 seconds after I stopped running. But like when you're coming up to the starting grid, I might not have that much time to stop. So that's kind of a problem I need to look into how to fix. I think I'm going to start by changing out the brake lines to the braided stainless lines and hope that maybe fixes it, because like maybe those rubber lines are like ballooning out at the ends of runs because it's like really, really hot and shit. But I'm like, that's not an ideal situation. So I bled the brakes at the track, and that didn't solve it. So I don't fully know what the issue is. And weirdly, it's just the front brakes, because I can pull the hydraulic handbrake that only locks up the rears, and that does work. So that's pretty much why I was able to keep running, is I was like, okay, I got a handle on this. Like I could finish my drifting run, and I'll just slow down with the handbrake, and as long as I feel confident like that I can stop, I can manage this until I have brakes again. But it's just not ideal to be running and not having brakes.
Well, yeah, yes, in a race setting,
especially doing tandem runs.
Dude, I have weird issues with my front brakes in my Ford, because even though the engine stays cool, there's a lot of heat buildup in the engine like bay. In the doghouse, and it cooks my brake lines, and I haven't sorted. I think I just need to flush them really well. But yeah, I mean, heat can apparently do weird things to brakes, because I'm having that issue.
Well, and weirdly, I'm running DOT 5.1 fluid, which is like really high temperature fluid and stuff too. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if heat is necessarily the issue or if it's something else, but it only lasts for a few seconds. It's weird, but like I said, I was able to manage it at the track for now. So I was able to just kind of like make it work, but in order to like get any more serious, I do need to really try and solve that problem. So, in my future is going to be braided stainless lines, and like I've been talking about for a while, eventually I'm going to pull the trigger on a vented carbon fiber hood, because I think that'll help me with my heat management. So outside of that, that's where I've been. That's not even everything, but that's all I'm going to spend time on, because I've been talking for way too fucking long here. So sorry about that, but I've been a busy boy.
Summer's car time, man. It's going to happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, we haven't recorded in 3 weeks, because we've all been busy with our own car stuff and whatnot, and summer.
I think I missed the last recording too.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help.
On the brakes thing, I mean, I will suggest the steel braided lines for anyone. Like I've got it on both my cars, and it does make a difference. Although part of that just could have been I bled the brakes when I installed those lines, so that helped to flush out any old nasty fluid. But I think it does help, at least with pedal fuel. I don't know if it'll help with your issue of losing pressure or whatever. But I have to wonder, like, if the hydraulic handbrake has something to do with it. Like, there's some little pocket of air that gets trapped in that.
It could be, but like I bled the shit out of them. Like, so all the if you remember, I've changed through like 3 of the brake calipers in pretty recent time. So like I've bled the system very, very recently, and I bled them again at the track and had no air issues, whatever. I may still try and bleed them again at home, just to be, but like after especially they're gonna get bled again after the stainless lines are put in because I already have the lines. So it's like, yeah, we'll try that and see if that works. But yeah, it's the hydraulic handbrake does impact like the pedal feel a bit. Like it makes it softer. There's no way around that. Like you increase the system volume by whatever it is, 20, 30, 40%, you're going to have a softer pedal. There's no way around that. When it's like this is a different issue to some extent. But, at the very least, the hydraulic handbrake does maintain its braking ability at this point. So that's kind of a weird thing for me.
I wonder if you could, like, get some of those, like, ice packs they have for, like, lunch boxes and, like...
Maybe.
Rubber band them to your master cylinder.
That could, yeah, who knows? That could help. For a bit.
Hell yeah. At least you've been, busy and doing stuff and having fun.
Yeah, hope to have more fun soon, too.
Yeah. Those videos that you posted of drifting, that looked like a lot of fun.
Oh, it is. It really is. It is another, it is an experience that is, I don't know, it's good. I don't know how else to describe it. It's fun. I like it. It feels fun. Yeah.
I like fun. I actually find it really enjoyable.
But that's me. Yep, definitely move on.
Well, cool. Is it my turn then?
Sure.
Okay. So I've been doing a few things with my Subaru. The short version is I'm thinking about selling it and getting a either a plug-in hybrid or a full EV. But either way, if I sell it or I don't, I have to get it to pass emissions, which I went on last Thursday and went to the emissions test, and it failed. It was about twice as bad as it should have been on all the stats. So my next step, whenever I have time in the next couple days, is to jack it up and take off the high flow cat that I have on there, which is clearly not doing its job.
No.
And replace it with the stock one, and then I might have to replace the intercooler with the stock one also, and then put another tune on it so that it'll work with all that. I do have like the Cobb off the shelf tune or whatever it's called for that setup. And so that should pass emissions. I think that's what I did 2 years ago when I had to get an emissions test. But this time I learned my lesson and I got a new gasket and some high temp RTV, just so I don't have another carbon monoxide leak that almost kills me like it did 2 years ago.
Yeah, you don't want that.
So yeah, that's the plan. And then I have a friend of a friend interested in buying it, but she's on kind of a time crunch and wants to buy it in the next 2 weeks, I want to say. So I got to get that sorted. But honestly, if I can get $5,000 for it, I'd be thrilled. That's about what I paid for it.
That's good, yeah.
I've fixed a lot of things since then. And, it's going to come with, a set of snow tires that are decent, have some life left in them on their own wheels and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good deal. Like, that's about what they're selling for, like a WRX wagon with the similar mileage. But yeah, I mean, I'll see what I can get out of it. Listeners, write in if you want to buy it, or Connor's Camaro for that matter.
Maybe I'll share the listing.
Or Zach's not here, so we should point out that he's trying to sell the Ranger too.
We're just selling all.
That's right. Yeah. And Brandon, by the time that we're done editing and put out this episode, you might have that Blazer for sale also, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get together. I'll go into it, but yeah, I'm trying to get a few things together to sell.
Yeah, sorry to jump the gun on that, but so I talked last time. I'm thinking about getting a Chevy Volt with a V, the plug-in hybrid. You can get those for, depending on what trim level you want and what year it is and mileage and all that, around $12,000 to $15,000. And then on top of that, maybe more like $20,000 for the nice ones. And then you can get another like $4,000 in federal rebates. At least where I live in Colorado, you get another $3,000 from the state. Or I think it's actually from the monopoly energy company, Xcel Energy. So I mean that's a pretty attractive thing. And then also depending on, and I'll go into this in more detail, depending on what year it is and what emissions equipment it has and like what state it was sold in, you can have up to 150,000 mile or 10-year warranty on all of the drivetrain components, all the powertrain, I should say. So the gas motor, the electric motor, the battery, all of the associated hardware with that. But finding one of those that fits that and is the, trim and color that I want is being difficult. I don't know, maybe I'm just being picky, but I don't want another gray silver car. I'm kind of done with that. It's kind of boring.
I think you should go get yourself a paint sprayer and learn how to paint a car. That's what I think.
Yeah, I don't know where I would do that. I don't know if my garage would be the greatest place to do
Yeah,
that.
put some plastic in there, you'll be fine. Turn your garage into a paint booth.
My garage is like barely bigger than my car.
That's what a paint booth is.
So I don't know.
Yeah, that just sounds like you have very little work to do for the conversion.
So I'm looking at the Volt still, but also I am looking at the Chevy Bolt with a B, which is the full EV. And those are a little bit newer. They started making them a couple years newer after the second gen Volt started. So the second gen Volt is in 2016 to 2019, and then the Bolt is 2017 to present. Although I think they took off part of 2023. I don't know if there's any built in 2023. But those are pretty attractive. They have I think it's an 8-year, 100,000 year
100,000-year warranty? That rules.
Excuse me, an 8-year, 100,000 miles or 8 years. So like a 2020 would still be under warranty for till 2028. But with those, they did a recall on the battery because some of them caught on fire. And so unless you missed the recall, they replaced the battery probably in the last couple years. So then the battery is covered for another 8 years or 100,000 miles.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
From whenever that was replaced.
Okay.
Yeah. And if it has the newer battery, which they started putting in the cars in 2020, the upgraded battery from the factory, you get about 260 miles of range if everything's working properly.
Which, if it's one of our cars, it won't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just, if you have the heat on in the winter, that'll drain the battery quicker. You get about like half the mileage or whatever. The 0 to 60 time on them is about 6.5 seconds, which is like in hot hatch categories.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, like pretty similar to a Fiesta ST. They have around 200 horsepower and 266 foot-pounds of torque. So, I mean, it's a proper little hot hatch. Like, they're a little bit smaller than my Subaru, but, a little bit taller, so you have more headroom. You can sit more upright. The only downside that I've seen is, one, it's a Chevy.
Feels like you're kind of coming at me right now.
2, the suspension setup isn't really like a sports car. It's struts in the front and torsion beam in the rear. But, I mean, that's also what a Fiesta ST has, and, people make those handle pretty good. And, in fact, I've seen a few people autocross the Chevy Bolt and, put sticky tires and coilovers on it and, maybe a sway bar or something. And, it looks like a lot of fun. It seems like it's a, decent handling car. So I'm looking into one of those. I'm going to see if I can find them. They're not that much more expensive than the Volt or maybe even similar prices. I found one here locally that I went to drive yesterday as a test drive and, enjoyed it. But I think they're asking around $19,000, but it's also had hail damage, so they might take some off of that. And then with the rebates, I might be able to get it under $10,000.
Fucking sweet.
We'll
That's
see.
fucking sweet.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem is that it's gray and I don't want another gray car. So I might go look at another one here soon that's in Greeley, so it's I don't know, 100 miles away from me or something. And it's I think they wanted around $17,000 or $18,000, but it's red, and it has a trailer hitch. I think. I don't know if I tow anything with it, but yeah, it's a little plus. But yeah, that's about where I'm at. I'm also thinking, I need to make sure my wiring is up to snuff in my garage, so I don't plug it in and start a fire and burn down my house. Don't want to do that. I don't know if I want to get full coverage on this for my insurance. I've never had that on a car. I don't know if it'd be worth it for something that's maybe a little bit more valuable.
Full coverage insurance?
Yeah.
I would say so.
Okay.
Don't you kind of have to have that if it's financed?
No, I mean, so if I can get it under $10,000 with all the rebates, I can pay cash for it.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
So I don't know if it's what the financial calculus is on that. But as is with just liability only insurance, it would be about the same as my Subaru, maybe $50 more a month or something like that, or not even. I think it was $10 more a month, just a tiny bit more. But yeah, that's about where I'm at. Nothing going on with the MR2. Still gotta find the time to work on that, and also have the garage free for it. So we'll see. But yeah, Brandon, what have you been up to?
Well, this past week, due to a pretty severe typo, I ended up with a project cat. So I've been acclimating her to my house now, and she seems really annoyed when I record. So this has been a very interesting experience. Beyond that, dude, yeah, it's been 3 weeks, so I've actually done quite a lot.
But real quick, what is the typo and what makes her a project cat?
Instead of a project car.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And she's a project just because I'm having to go through the process of introducing her to the house and my other cat. And so she's currently in isolation in the room that I record in. So she's very loving of attention, and it does not understand why I am in this room and not just fawning over her. And she has dental problems. They did warn me that her mouth was going to be a project.
Okay.
No, that's obviously a joke. I got a new cat. Let's see. I had I think it was right after we last recorded, or maybe even before, but I had 1 week where everything I owned got a flat tire.
Oh.
So I got new tires on the Cutlass finally. I found a really cheap set of tires that I ballparked it and was like, yeah, this seems like it's going to fit in my wheel well. Because I know the next size up won't, but just barely. And so, yeah, now I have maximum tire in the back of my Cutlass without rubbing on anything. I haven't really had to do much to it lately. It just runs and drives when I need it to. The rear suspension has felt really loose. I think I might need to replace the bushings in the suspension stuff. I don't know. I'm also wondering if just the shitty old tires that I had in the back were hard enough that I could do burnouts really fucking easily. I think these tires might be a little softer, so they actually hook up, so I can feel when the suspension is catching and shit. I haven't driven it a whole lot just because that feels a little weird until I can get it up in the air and shake the rear down a little bit. Just been taking it easy on it. And if I can't do burnouts in that car, I basically don't drive it. My Ford has been really spotty for a while. It just kept flooding, and I think I got that fixed. My choke was being real weird, and it was so far out of adjustment that it would start most of the time pretty good, and other times it would just dump fuel into the carb. And it actually took me doing enough reading to understand exactly how the choke mechanism works, because it does work differently than I necessarily understood it. And once I got it adjusted, it starts easier, but it doesn't flood. So sometimes it doesn't want to start, and that's because I have to give it a little, with carbureted vehicles, you have an accelerator pump, so when you hit the gas, it actually gives it a squirt of gas into the intake. And so now I have to do that a little bit more. So it's still technically not in adjustment, but on a hot day, it starts easily. On a cold day, I got to give it a little bit more. But it does seem to be starting better. It's not flooding to the point of being undrivable once a week, so that's...
Oh, no.
I also broke the frame again. Well, one by one, I'm breaking every weld that a previous owner did and redoing it myself. This was one of the welds that I had never touched, and it had a lot of bubblegum welds on it, so I took a good hour to just clean it up. And actually, the thing I do is I'm always really frantic when something breaks, and I forget to do proper weld prep, and that just creates more problems for yourself than it solves. So I actually took it to the shop with since I'm not working right now, I actually have the free time to do things properly. It's the pitfall right now is I don't have the money to do things properly, but that is what it is. But no, I got that welded up. I was absolutely shocked. I probably did a half an hour of weld prep, and then actually fixing it took 5 minutes.
Nice.
Oh, that's good.
It was also without being able to explain exactly the way that the Ford twin I-beam suspension works. It wasn't broken in a place that was dangerous. It just made a noise that really stressed me out every time I heard it. With it broken, I still loaded up a bunch of my friend's stuff and helped him move. It wasn't so bad that I couldn't do that, because where it's broken only is under stress when the suspension is moving. Actual weight doesn't impact that part of it. So Ford seems to be running good. This morning was the first time it didn't want to start, and I didn't want to fuck with it too much. Kept calm, drove my car to the store. When I got back, I had enough time to think about it, and I didn't even have to tweak or adjust anything. I just gave it a couple of extra pumps because I'm so used to it flooding that every time it doesn't start, I'm fuck, it's flooded. And in this case, it actually did not have enough gas to start since I hadn't driven it for 2 or 3, 4 days. Because I've also been between the cost of gas and me being unemployed and never really in a hurry to get anywhere, I've just been riding my bike more. That's not a brag at this point since I don't even have a job to ride it to. But any errands I have to run, I try and ride my bike to. In the last 3 weeks, I have I won't quite say that I have finished the bodywork on one entire side of my 75 Chevy, but from the front of the back wheel well forward, so from like the back wheel well to the fender, I have replaced all of the rotted sheet metal. It is welded in. It is finished. I do have to tweak the wheel arch a little bit and the rear cab corner, which is maybe a foot of sheet metal, and I have the patch panel, and it's really simple, so that should be easy. That's a big fucking deal, because I've let that van go really to shit in the time that I've had it. I think what really motivated was I looked at a picture of it from when I first bought it, and then I looked at it now, and I'm like, dude, I have let this thing be destroyed. So yeah, one side of it is about 80% patched now. The other side was not even as bad. My sliding door is in rough shape, but they do sell full kits for both the inner frame and the door skin that I was going to buy one of those. And then I went to a fucking junkyard that had an early 70s Chevy, so the exact same body lines and everything, because they did change some of the body lines in 77. I found a door that still needs a little bit of work, but is in way better shape than mine. So I'm probably just going to patch that up and throw that on. And I have one rear door that is in really bad shape. And a friend of mine was moving and was like, hey, I still have the back door from my Chevy van from where somebody backed up into me and we replaced it. Do you want this? And it has 80% of the sheet metal that I have that's rotted, it has intact.
Good shit.
Nice.
That's really convenient. Honestly, the thing that keeps slowing me down is I keep running out of welding gas. I got to buy a fucking bigger tank. In an unusual turn of events for me, I got one of my motorcycles out and started working on it. I haven't ridden in a few years. Like, I don't think I've ridden any motorcycles that I own since we've been recording this podcast. I dragged some of them into the shop and started working on one of them. I expect that I'll have, it's an 87 Harley Sportster. I have a bunch of upgrade stuff for it, so I'm kind of thinking like I might just go ahead and swap out the new top end, put in new cams, and once all that's done, I mean, like that's on those, that's literally like an afternoon's worth of work. That's not something terribly complicated on those bikes. I might have to replace the coil, or it might be the ignition switch, but it's turning over, it's not firing. But again, those are such simple fucking bikes that it's not crazy to do that. If I can get it running, it's $200 and a day's worth of work away from being rideable. I just have to patch up the brakes and put a new battery in it.
Hell yeah.
But, for having sat for 5 or 6 years, that's not too bad. And that, I'm probably going to ride that a little bit this summer. If, on paper, all of the performance parts that I have for that I bought forever ago should make that bike around 90 horsepower, I think.
Okay.
On a motorcycle, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, it seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, like, with a little bit of, like, port work and stuff like that, the kit and cams that I have right now, I've heard people pushing out slightly over 100. I want to say that just if I bolt everything on it, it should be in the 85 to 95 range. And it's a Harley, so it's not even like I'm exactly worried about it making power. They're not necessarily fucking known for that. But it should be a fun little ripper around town until I sell it. And yeah, I'm kind of like trying to liquidate some stuff. I have like, I never talk about it because I don't give a shit about it. It was literally like a vehicle I drove for 3 months and then parked when I bought something more fun. But I have a 95 S10 Blazer that I think I might like finally just clean up. One of the windows is busted out and I had like a trash bag taped over it for a while. That has finally like decayed and like torn free. So I've got to like clean out the interior like really fucking good because it's been exposed to the elements for probably 3-4 months now. Yeah, I'm going to try and clean that up. If I sold both of those, that'd be a few grand and something I could put towards other projects and all. Because yeah, right now my big hurdle is like without serious money coming in, like, oh, I could be like doing a suspension swap on my Cutlass or I only need like $400 to do an engine swap in my van because I know a guy who's willing to sell me everything I need, including the engine, for a few $100. But yeah, it's hard to justify spending any money when you're not making any. So yeah, I'm going to try and like, while I've got free time, fix some stuff up to sell. And if I spend $200 or $300 on something and make $2,000 off of it, then that's just money I can sink into other projects, or I don't know, fix anything around my fucking house, anything like that. Yeah, that's what I've been up to. Trying to stay productive and doing a reasonably good job of it.
Yeah, sounds like it. Shit.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, it's weird that like I can juggle working on multiple things because normally I get so distracted by one or wrapped up in the other that like nothing ever gets done. But I've been maintaining a reasonably good balance for the last few weeks.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's what's up with me.
News time. All right.
All right, the news. And what do we got up first?
Nothing good.
Well, I mean, this is kind of good news. So,
are we starting with the Lyft shit?
yeah. So,
Okay, yeah, that is good.
back in May, in Minneapolis, or I should say in Minnesota, the state legislature created a bill for 14% raise for all Uber and Lyft drivers. So any rideshare driver has basically a minimum wage that $1.28 per mile minimum, 31 cents per minute before tips when transporting a passenger, and at least $5 per trip minimum.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is really good. So, and then also they're entitled to 80% of any cancellation fee if they have already left to pick up a rider. And then also the drivers with wheelchair accessible vehicles are entitled to an additional 91 cents per mile. And rates will increase each year with inflation, like the state's minimum wage.
Hell yeah.
Minnesota's minimum wage increases every year based on inflation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same happens in Colorado, too. I don't know if other states do that.
Definitely fucking not.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely not. Doesn't work that way in Illinois, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still...
I've never heard of that in Pennsylvania, for sure.
Still not like a living wage in Colorado, but at least it's, better than nothing. So the response from Uber and Lyft is that they're just going to leave the city and or the state and just not do business there. And
well, I mean, they can't compete without a free market.
Right. So, I mean, this doesn't go into effect till December, so we'll see.
I feel like what we're actually going to learn is that they're leaving because Minnesota won't let them work, give driver's licenses to 13-year-olds to make them drive for 60 hours a week.
I mean, so this doesn't go into effect until December, so we'll see if they actually do that, go forward with it. But the other headline here is some Uber and Lyft drivers say that they'll start their own rideshare co-op. And so this has already been done in New York City, where a worker-owned co-op does their own rideshare service. And so they're trying to set this up in Minneapolis also.
Which I think is the correct response. When a company is threatened with, hey, you have to pay your workers, and they say, okay, we're going to punish you by pulling out of this market entirely so that you won't get our services at all. I think the correct response is to have those people working in there to say, okay, we'll do the same shit you do without you, and the workers will own it.
Yeah.
I think that's the right move. We'll kind of see how it plays out. I think Uber and Lyft are feeling a little bit more willing to make moves like that with a state like Minnesota rather than a state like, California or Illinois or, certain markets are bigger than others, and, Minnesota is probably a little bit smaller. But if they can pull off a replacement with a co-op, then obviously that can be replicated, and they won't have so much power when they're threatening to pull their services out of a given, location. Very exciting to see.
Yeah. I will also mention, all the, I believe all the drivers that they interviewed for these articles and the state legislator who was responsible for, getting this bill through, I believe are all immigrants from Somalia or other parts of Africa. So, I don't know what the sort of class and race dynamics are in Minnesota, but I'm sure that has something to do with how workers are treated.
I could see that, yeah.
Well, it sounds to me like if they're not happy with the way things are in America, maybe they should go back to where they came from, right?
I think I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I mean, that's isn't Ilhan Omar from? Isn't she Minnesota?
That sounds correct.
She is.
Yeah, and she's Somali.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's definitely an argument that I've heard levied against her is oh, well, go back to where you came from then. Everybody lacks the analysis that the places that these people come from are hell because we made them that way.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know, man. I'm happy to see workers taking charge like that. I'm still not sold on rideshare apps. Taxis exist, and they actually have measures to at least do background checks on stuff. I don't know, man. Somebody was telling me about the problems with sexual assault amongst Uber drivers and Lyft drivers and shit, and I'm I don't know, man. Maybe different type of regulation needs to be had, or maybe there's some other solution that we could come up with, taxis.
Yeah. They did say that for this worker-owned co-op that they're going to have some requirements on licenses, insurance, criminal background checks, and vehicle inspections. So,
that was all I was asking. So
go.
if they're doing that, that's sick.
yeah. So, I mean, this is basically just a worker-owned taxi company at this point.
That is the fucking move. I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah.
So next up, we are just seeing Biden crushing the quote-unquote free market. Biden will tax imported Chinese EVs 100%.
Yeah.
So...
Damn, that doesn't seem like a free market thing. What's going on? I'm confused.
I know I'm going to mix my terminology up here, but is it like they were proposing like what, tariffs?
Yeah, tariffs.
Yeah.
Is this in addition to tariffs?
I think that's what they're talking about. I think this is the tariff.
Okay.
I think a tariff is just
Okay.
another word for a import tax.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
it is.
gotcha. Okay, I just wanted to be clear that they weren't like it wasn't now an additional tax when you're like at the dealership in addition to you paying the tariff on it. But no, this is funny. This is like empire lashing out.
Yeah.
Because apparently the free market was not what it was cracked up to be at coming up with EVs and selling them. And like honestly, like I hate everything I'm about to say, but I watched like a video of somebody was doing a review of a luxury Chinese EV, and I don't like luxury shit. It's not my thing. My car barely has an interior. But what you were getting like for the money you were spending, dude, that thing was extravagant compared to any bullshit you can buy in the U.S.
Yeah. And,
Like,
I keep hearing journalists or whoever covers international finance stuff talk about like how China isn't playing fair because the government is like subsidizing these businesses. They're like subsidizing solar panel companies and stuff like that. And, other countries can't compete with the central planning type subsidies or whatever you want to call it. And I just think, our country could do that also.
Also, our country does subsidize the shit out of a lot of stuff.
Right.
Show me an Elon Musk company that would be successful without the government paying.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, show me a fossil fuel company that isn't getting subsidies from
Or
the
like
US
a
government.
corn farm.
Or a corn farm.
Like, I don't want to play the vegan card, but dude, show me any like cattle farm that would be profitable at the prices that they sell for without massive U.S. subsidies. That like people do not realize what a heavily subsidized industry that is. I've heard estimates a decade or more ago about beef costing $30 a pound if you were actually paying for the work and resources put into raising cattle.
Yes. It's funny. On top of that, we have a different model of subsidizing, but like
Yes, a worse model.
well, a worse model. But like if you look at, you'd have to ask, okay, well, why is it fair that the Chinese government decides, they do some planning and they decide we're going to put some subsidies here. We're going to do some financial assistance to these industries. How is that fundamentally different from, say, investors buying stocks of a company? I mean, I understand that stocks can be kind of mystified sometimes, but that's what a stock is. You're buying shares of this company, and that's basically like you're loaning them money to use. You're giving them operating capital, and they're going to invest that money into putting shit out and making profit and then paying back on those shares. It's not fundamentally that different from a subsidy in a lot of ways. So I'd have to ask, okay, why is it okay to have private fucking investors subsidizing these companies, but then when a government does the same thing, that's cheating? It's like, well, I don't know, is it? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's cheating to let the market be regulated by something with a long-term goal and not just by a short-term investor who's eager to dismantle it for profit.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the free market they're always talking about.
Actually, when you put it that way, it does a little bit sound like cheating.
It's cheating to have a plan.
Yeah.
It's cheating to think ahead.
Which is, I mean, of course, what you see with like the ghost cities in like China, where it's like they built this whole city and no one lives there, and then like everyone moves in and it's fine, and then they're like, look at this other ghost city, and you're like, I kind of just seems like they're planning, actually.
Actually, that ghost city doesn't have power or running water, and that's why they built the other city to move people into.
Yeah.
It's just so silly.
Yeah. The reason why they're doing these tariffs is that in China you can buy a small electric hatchback for like the equivalent of $6,700.
Jesus.
And like that thing would not pass, American crash test, standards, and probably wouldn't there'd probably be all kinds of regulations that they'd have to, get it to pass. But like, that's kind of an idea of like what they're capable of doing in China. And like a huge portion of the new car sales in China recently have been electric or hybrid cars. And part of that is because the cities were so choked with smog that the government's like, get these fossil fuel cars out of here. So like nowadays, like the majority of taxis in China are some kind of hybrid or electric car, which is like, I think we still have a whole lot of like Crown Victorias running around here. To go to the next couple like headlines, the government of Mexico was considering incentives for China to move car factories to Mexico, and that would have sort of gotten around these import duties by, taking advantage of NAFTA or whatever it's called.
Well, that sounds great. I can't wait for that to happen. Surely nothing bad is about to come up.
Well, the U.S. Suggested that there might be penalties if production of Chinese electric vehicles moves to Mexico, and the Mexican government.
Even if there's penalties, they'll still be inexpensive. I mean, it's not like Mexico's just not going to let them make them there, right?
Yeah, Mexico facing U.S. pressure will halt incentives to Chinese EV makers.
Well, strong-arming third parties kind of
wait a second.
Feels like cheating,
Yeah,
actually.
I'm confused. Subsidies are cheating, but this isn't? I think there's some... this is a little bit hypocritical.
Well, no, it's confusing terms. Like, it's cheating and bullying are not directly the same thing.
That's true.
Okay.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
And that was an AP article, by the way. Just for anyone keeping track.
Yeah, AP and Reuters or whatever.
I hope every libertarian in America is furious about this.
Yeah,
something tells me that they don't think about it the same way, but...
It is wild to me, just the level of, like, they hold this political, economic ideology, and they're just the most unprincipled fucking people, where I'm like, I mean, you look and you're like, okay, look, I own my shit, but where the fuck are you? Nowhere. Ay.
Yeah, some of the...
Nothing has ever beat the quote that I heard about libertarians, which is that libertarians think everything is rape and murder except for rape and murder.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, rape and slavery.
Oh, my God.
Everything is rape and slavery except for rape and slavery.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the coverage of the recent Libertarian Party convention is pretty hilarious.
Yeah. What was Trump saying? Like, you guys all know what it's like to be accused of sexual assault or something like that.
Oh, I didn't hear that part.
I honestly, I saw some like meme account posting that, and I'm like, this can't be real. But supposedly in a speech, Trump made some passing comment about how, like, oh, you people, like, you know what they're accusing me of? You people know what it's like to be accused of stuff like that. And it's like, well, we think that you said the truth, but it wasn't what you meant to say.
Yeah. The one thing I heard was that I don't know why they brought Trump in to speak there, but he's like, you should all vote for me or not. Just enjoy getting 3% of the vote.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we could muster any better, to be honest, but.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think any socialist party is gonna get anything more than a little blip on the election.
Yeah.
I'm still voting Claudia and Karina for PSL because fuck.
Oh yeah,
same.
I'm not voting genocide under any circumstances.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, same.
And I'm sick of arguing with libs about it.
I'm just not. I'm like, yeah, this is who I'm voting for. Fucking hell yeah. No arguments to be had there.
Yeah, don't DM us.
Yeah, find my fucking account and DM me. Just send me your address and we'll hash it out.
Well, speaking of Mexico, Subaru is finally making a manual transmission WRX wagon, but only for Mexico.
We never get the cool cars.
Yeah.
What is going on in Mexico?
Yeah, I wish Zach was here to talk about this, but, we're both fans of the WRX wagon, and I don't know why they stopped making it, but apparently they're going to bring it back to just in Mexico.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Look, they in the U.S., it is claimed that wagons don't sell in the U.S. As much as we might like them, I keep hearing that they won't sell in the U.S. And I think that that's probably a little bit less true, and more so that for a wagon, that you can get the same functionality and just put it in a bigger package and get a higher profit margin is generally, they'll err towards like SUVs more than wagons because there's higher profit margins in that, which sucks. I mean, it's gross, but apparently, I don't know, Mexico.
Well, I mean, you don't understand. These companies are barely making any money, so they need to do whatever they can.
By the way, Connor, you reminded me of another article, if we can kind of switch up the order that I had. Or no, actually, this is next, I think. So the headline is, even being one of Chevy's best-selling models couldn't save the Malibu.
Yeah.
So the news is that Chevy is killing off the Malibu to, switch that factory over to making electric cars and SUVs. This line just kind of spoke to me, just kind of popped out at me. The cynical read is that the Malibu's death could have something to do with sedans yielding slimmer profit margins, as full-size pickups and crossovers tend to make more money for manufacturers.
Yeah, it's the same reason I don't think Ford makes a sedan or small car anymore outside of the Mustang. That's it. There's no more cars. So they don't make the Fusion, Focus, nothing.
I think Dodge is killing off all their sedans, Chrysler.
The American car companies are soon going to be like literally focused.
The Challenger and Charger are going to stay around.
I think it's coming back in a year, but they're going to pause the gas-powered ones until they get the...
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Maybe they're going... I might be wrong. Never mind.
So I think what these... All of the big three, what I'm pretty sure what they're going to do is trucks and SUVs exclusively, except for some sporty or muscle car kind of thing. And I think Chevy was talking about doing a EV Camaro sedan. Dodge has been talking about doing like a Charger EV, and I'm sure at some point Ford, I think they were kind of hinting that they were going to keep that gas powered for some amount of time. They're still going to do mostly
the Mustang, you mean?
Yeah. They're still going to do mostly trucks and SUVs, though, because that's where their profits are, which is just a bummer.
Right.
It's like, again, it's instead of producing for human need or what the market actually wants or needs, we're just going to produce for what makes the most money. And so then they'll use that evidence. Of course, they'll be like, well, everybody's buying trucks and SUVs. And it's like, well, that's all you fucking sell. So, yeah.
Actually, everybody was buying Malibus until you stopped selling them to us.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know how people afford these high-end cars, because like, who the fuck is making all of this money? It's certainly not anyone on this fucking show. True, I just don't understand. Like, the Malibu is a reasonable car. I don't really know what the price range on it is, but it seems at least affordable. And they're like, this feels like cheating. It's them saying like, this isn't expensive enough, so we're not going to sell it to you anymore.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it kind of reminds me of how like, renewable energy like wind and solar are getting to the point where they're actually cheaper than coal and natural gas and other fossil fuels. But like the fossil fuel industry, they're so invested in the infrastructure of, refineries and mines and power stations and whatnot that they want to pay off those assets before they switch over.
Yeah.
They could make a profit off of solar, but they just don't want to make, slightly less profit than they're making right now with all these fossil fuel assets. At least that's the explanation that I heard. I don't know if there's something else going on.
I think the thing going on is capitalism operating as we would expect it to operate, and it sucks.
Yeah. Let's go on to the Tesla news. Does anyone want to read this part?
Oops, Tesla is rehiring some charging personnel Musk laid off. Dude, I can't imagine taking your job back at Tesla after that.
Right.
That is the shocking thing. I can't imagine taking that job. That's crazy.
It seems very unrewarding based on the little bit that I've heard come from like inside the factories. And to know that the company is doing that bad and that they're going to just very flippantly lay you off for little to no reason, why would you come back to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a factor or like the situation where like Musk said, you're all fired, and then they realized, oh, actually we need those people, come back, or if something else was going on.
Didn't that happen with Twitter too?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that happened at Twitter too.
Okay.
It seems like it is a pattern for him. He's like, I'm going to make it efficient. I'm just going to fire everybody. And then they realize that, oh, those people did things here. Oh, all right.
That dude is the Dunning-Kruger effect personified.
Yeah, he really is.
There's that clip of him saying, I think I know more about manufacturing than any person alive.
I thought, yeah, I think we posted a meme about that on our social media, but that is fucking psychotic. Like, I also want to know, like, what kind of person theoretically went through journalism school, got into a media career, did some reporting, whatever, sat in front of that dumb motherfucker and let him say that and not be like, I'm sorry, excuse me, sir? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, what brings you to that level that, like, you can't say that? Because they maybe push back. I didn't see the interview, but I feel like the news wasn't that the person was, like, taken aback and, like, excuse me? You're fucking out of your mind. So, like...
My assumption would, like, if I was a journalist, I would be so, like, flabbergasted by the stupidity of the thing that had just been said to me that I would be speechless.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, just because he's been on tours of some factories doesn't mean he knows anything about manufacturing.
Also, to say that it's almost a meaningless term because manufacturing is everything.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
There's so many facets of that. You could know everything there is to know about, like, a certain thing and still know nothing about the other 99.9%.
Yeah.
Truly unhinged thing to say.
Quick side tangent. I was in the Denver airport like a week ago, and there was a Cybertruck parked in the parking garage there that I walked past. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I went in to get a closer look and just, walked around the truck. And it's every bit as ugly as you think it is in person.
It's bad.
But then the other thing that happened...
The thing I hear consistently from everyone is, I finally saw one in person, and it's even worse than I expected.
Yeah. And the other thing that happened is, as soon as I got close to it, the side marker lights lit up, and the big tablet screen in the dash, started flashing red and said "recording in progress."
Yeah. I was leaving work like a week ago or something, and I was apparently a Tesla had parked next to me, and as I'm like getting into my car, it's like it's lighting up the entire fucking vehicle, like the brightest setting imaginable, and it's like Sentry recording and I'm like, this is outrageous. And I also thought, man, if you wanted to, like, I don't know, kill a Tesla battery, I suppose you could just like exist near it for a while.
Just get like one of those little drinking bird things and put it up next to the camera.
I literally had the exact same thought.
What are these?
Like in that episode of The Simpsons, the little bird.
It's a little novelty toy.
Yeah.
Like they somehow work with like barometric pressure or something, but they just dip their beak in water, and they just it almost seems like I forget the term I'm looking for, but they'll just keep going and going until the water evaporates.
Oh, okay. That's fun.
Yeah, it's just like a novelty like toy sort of thing.
Gotcha.
But they always keep moving, so yeah, continue to record them indefinitely.
That's perfect.
Dude, especially if it was in airport parking, like long-term parking, so you just set that up and it records for a week straight with its lights flashing and shit. Somebody gets home from like some work trip and they're like, oh, my battery is at 0% and I'm stuck in the airport.
Kind of getting back to this article, I did want to... I saw this... I wanted to read a paragraph here that I just think is like exactly what we were talking about. Tesla's restaffing of its supercharger team echoes how Musk handled his acquisition of Twitter, which saw a similar about-face after the site's stability deteriorated very noticeably. The evident lack of review of dismissals draws attention to Musk's increasingly erratic management style and how it seemingly has no answer for Tesla's mounting problems. So, like, we're seeing, like, this man's descent into madness, and, like, he's followed around by, like he's a big person in the news, right? Everybody's interested in what he's doing, and so his erratic behavior is just unmistakable, where he walks in, fires a bunch of people, and then finds out, oh, those people are necessary, and then agrees to hire them back, which is just nuts. It's like it adds to the turmoil, and, I don't think it's doing anybody any favors. It's funny to watch as it implodes his companies.
One thing I will say is I'm fascinated to see what happens, because there's no way that any of his companies outlive us. No. Unless something tragically car-related happens to us in the near future, we will get to see his downfall, and that is endlessly hilarious to me. Because that man is going to go nuclear.
Yeah. I think there's going to be, like, roaming around a downtown area with a shocking lack of clothing and screaming at people. Is like
I hope he just sends a SpaceX rocket right into the White House, and that's what happened to America.
Oh, that would be so great. That would be so great. Now I have something to dream about.
I I read this book that I heard suggested on a podcast recently called Eat the Rich or something, or Kill the Rich, I think is what it's called. And that's basically what happens is Elon Musk tries to do a coup against the U.S. government. Spoiler, I guess.
This is totally a tangent, but have you heard the thing where apparently him and Trump are actually friends now and spend like a serious amount of time on the phone with each other every week?
I did not hear
that
it,
makes
but
sense.
it's not surprising. Yeah,
I haven't heard that verified, but like I think that might have like been something that leaked somewhere. And yeah, apparently they're buddies now.
fun.
Yeah.
They seem made for each other.
Yes, but where? In the pits of hell.
Well, that's where we
Yeah.
live.
Yeah, fair enough.
I figure now is probably a good time to cover the other Tesla story we got. If
Yeah.
that makes sense to y'all. So this is an article, yet another article in the Drive today. Headline is actually EV sales aren't struggling, just Teslas. So there's been a lot of news lately about like Ford pulling back on EV sales and a bunch of companies kind of like really backing off of going into EVs. And I think there's a number of legitimate reasons for them to do that. I just think we're not quite there yet in certain respects. However, I think a lot of them were scared off looking at like Tesla's sales and things like that, but that's not exactly indicative of the market. According to this article, it does seem like Tesla kind of like is the big EV producer, and so when their sales suffer, it kind of looks like the whole market is suffering when in fact everyone else is doing just fine. It's just that Teslas are pieces of shit. They're constructed.
You mean it's not that people don't like EVs, it's just that they don't like in general when cars randomly explode or speed into oncoming traffic or just generally are made incredibly poorly straight from the factory?
Yeah, all of that, plus when their very, very, very famous CEO is out there making an ass of himself and making himself like unloved by everyone. Like nobody likes the guy. Yeah, that's a big part of it, and that is kind of like what's behind a lot of the like, oh, EV sales aren't where they're supposed to be, and it's like, well, it's just Tesla. And I happened to ride in a Tesla for I took like a Lyft or whatever, and it was a Model Y, and man, it was a piece of shit. I was like looking at this, I was like, yikes. And then I looked up at this like glass roof, and I'm looking around, I'm like, there's nothing else structural around it. This car, like, if it rolls over, which seems like a real fucking possibility, I was like, dude, this thing is not safe to crash at all. There is nothing structural up top. So like, yikes. I was looking around, I'm like, this is fucking scary. I'd feel safer in a lot of cars, like, and most convertibles, I feel like I'd feel safer. This was not good.
What do we know what kind of like crash test ratings those tend to get?
They're pretty good, I think. And a lot of that is because they don't have an engine up front, so they have more room for like crumple zones and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know how they are in a rollover, but they do score pretty well.
I just assumed that since they weigh like 8,000 pounds, that there's a lot of protective shit.
Yeah, I was, again, for the weight, I'm looking up and I'm like, there's nothing above my head except for like a little bit of a, theoretically some kind of hoop frame, but yeah, there was no like cross members or anything. It was all just wide open glass, and I've seen Tesla glass, and it is not good. Plus,
not bulletproof.
The ride of the vehicle was like my car. Actually, my car was like, it feels a little bit smoother running down the street. This thing was like, it hits a bump and you fucking feel it. I was like, dude, this is fucking crazy. It's an SUV. You shouldn't feel a single bump ever. Or not an SUV. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's a Model Y. It's SUV-esque. Yeah. But like, come on. My fucking drift car should not have a nicer ride than your SUV-like thing. So anyway, noticeable piece of shit. So that probably has a lot to do with the sinking EV sales. This kind of article goes on here. I'll just read a little bit from it, just to kind of get the idea here. Much has been said about electric vehicle sales tumbling off a cliff in the U.S., but there is reason to believe that the latest downturn in sales is mostly a Tesla problem, not one affecting EVs in general. Bleak EV sales outlook of 2024 can be traced to weaker demand and subsequently lower sales of market-leading Tesla vehicles, which saw a steep decline in sales this year compared to the first quarter of 2023. Meanwhile, most other automakers bolstering their lineups with EVs actually saw a healthy increase in pure electric sales. It looks like the market is conflating Tesla's tumble with one that's impacting the market overall. But that's not true, according to data from Bloomberg and Cox Automotive. EVs from Ford, Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, Rivian, Hyundai, and Kia have seen a retail surge. Ford leads growth with models like the F-150 Lightning and Mustang Mach-E, while Hyundai and Kia came in with the least growth of the best-selling bunch for models such as the Iconic 6 and EV6. But by any measure, automakers are enjoying a notable increase in quarterly EV sales expansion this year. So I'm gonna list off a couple of percentages here, and then we'll kind of be done. But just to demonstrate the point, among the major manufacturers, Bloomberg's data focuses on EV sales increased as follows: Ford's grew 86%, Toyota grew 85.9%, Mercedes grew 66.9%. Rivian's grew 58.8%, BMW's grew 57.8%, and Hyundai/Kia's, I don't know, maybe they were both the same. I don't know why they're combining these, but Hyundai and Kia's grew 56.1%. So yeah, that's all pretty healthy growth in sales. So all the declining EV sales, I mean, who's left? It's Tesla.
Yeah.
So their problem is they're shitty cars, and their CEO's a dumbass and a piece of shit, and yeah, people see it now. So
I wonder how the Lordstown Motors sales are going.
I'll just say one thing real quick. I did look just because I was curious, and you can get like a used 2012 Tesla for about the same price as you can get like a 2018 to 2020 Chevy Volt or Bolt, like around $14,000 or so. I'm not sure if that includes the rebate, the federal rebate, or not. So, like, if I wanted to, I could buy a Tesla in theory, but I'm not going to because it's a Tesla, and especially one that's over 10 years old and probably has like 100,000 miles on it. I don't know what is going to be broken on at that stage.
Yeah, I've heard that they are really struggling in the resale value.
Yeah,
and like desire too. Like nobody fucking wants to use Tesla.
And I feel like that's kind of true also of like other luxury cars in general, like Audi, BMW, Mercedes. Like it seems like they build them for the lease period or for a few years, and then they're kind of just trashed after that.
Yeah.
Status symbols don't get recycled well.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, weird. I always would have assumed it was better because I'm like, oh, I can afford this status symbol that's 10 years old, but like now I can have it. My dumb fucking poor ass can have it. I would think that would be good, but I guess that's not where they make their money, so they're not going to produce
I'm
it
sure
that
that there are people who that is their mentality, but yeah, if you've got the money to buy like a new luxury car, then no, used is not going to cut it for you. Like you need it's the keeping up with the Joneses thing or whatever. Like you always have to have the newest, shiniest thing.
Yeah. No one wants a used Gucci bag, I guess.
Oh, see, in my head, I'm like, oh, I can get a used. Well, I don't want a Gucci bag, but like, if I was into Gucci bags, I'd probably be into a used one for sure. What, if people put a few fucking things in there and it's not useful anymore? Come on, what are you talking about?
I actually kind of feel like for like clothing and stuff like that, there is more of a market for it.
You're probably right.
Because it's less dated right out of the gate. Also, like, I'm going off of like a lot of half-remembered stuff, but I feel like a lot of luxury car brands are not known for being long-lasting.
No,
like,
right.
They make a lot of power, they handle well, they are extravagant, but 10 years down the road, parts are hard to find. Nobody wants to work on them. They all failed because they were engineered to be perfect cars for 50,000 miles and then fall apart.
Yeah.
Like,
except Lexus.
fuck off.
I'm sure you don't want to hear that, but they are decently reliable cars from what I understand.
That's because they're Toyotas with a fucking
Yeah, I was
with
going to say,
leather
like,
seats.
when you put a Toyota drivetrain in anything, yeah, it's going to last forever.
Yeah. I know Donut had a video recently of like, here's all these previously expensive like luxury sports cars that have depreciated so much that you could afford one, but like, should you actually buy this? And yeah, none of them looked all that attractive to me. Like, I wouldn't get like a 15-year-old Range Rover. I mean, I don't want a Range Rover anyways. Imagine all the problems that you would have with a 15-year-old Range Rover. Like, I don't want to think about it.
Also, luxury stuff has a tendency to be expensive to fix.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So if you can only afford used, you already out of the gate probably can't afford repairs.
Yeah.
since we're talking about a Range Rover, I got him. The tech at the shop that I go to a lot, he was talking about he's got a project ass fucking Range Rover, and I'm looking at this thing. He was showing me pictures. He said he's like, yeah, so the wiring harness is real bad because they didn't drill drainage holes where they left the fucking like wiring harness, but it's like all exposed ass like the wiring harness is incredibly huge. Going to the back, going to who God knows what. It's a luxury car. But apparently it's like sitting in these trenches under the carpet that's like filled with water with no drainage. And he's just like, yeah, so this like wiring harness is just straight up sitting in fucking rusty water. And I'm like, yo, dude, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, yeah, so he's having all these problems. I'm like, dude, you're going to have wiring issues that are just beyond fixable. So he says he's gonna like try and drill a bunch of holes, but I was like, yeah, that sounds like a Range Rover problem to me. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, that sounds like something that should have been maybe done 10 or 20 years ago.
Like, oh,
At the factory.
Yeah, so that's what you're buying for all that money is wiring harnesses that sit in water that will not drain out of the fucking vehicle.
That sounds like saying, I just wrecked my car. I better hurry up and go get insurance.
I forget why this was. It might have been some environmental thing, but there were certain German car companies for a few years that were doing biodegradable insulation on their wiring. And you can imagine what happened with that.
A lot of insulation for wiring now is soy based, and that's why.
Oh, okay.
Animals tend to love it.
But I mean, even without animals, just sitting around, it would just degrade and start shorting out.
Super fun.
I don't know, like, as I say that, I realize it's not something I've ever looked into. I've just heard that a couple of times, so yeah, it seems like it could be true, but I don't know for a fact 100% that it is.
One other quick little Tesla-related story. The Hertz rental car agency charged someone who rented a Tesla from them for not filling up the gas tank. This is someone who took a Tesla back to the rental agency, charged up the battery to, I think, 90%, but they charged his credit card $277 for not filling up the gas tank. Apparently this is something that's happened a few times with Hertz and other rental car agencies, but it took the publication of this article for the person to get their money back, from what I understand.
That's so crazy. Like, you could be like, hey, so you charge me all this hundreds of dollars for not filling up the gas tank. Look, I understand mistakes happen. It's no big deal. But, like, this is an electric vehicle, obviously.
Yeah.
And for that to not be enough to get your money back is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like at a certain point I'd be like, what do you do? Like, what? And so, yeah, then they publish articles, and that's when some of the people get some of their money back. I'm pretty sure this was a systemic issue, though. Like, this happened at a bunch of Hertz, didn't it?
Yeah, it happened to more than a few people.
It's like, what the fuck, man? That's crazy.
Yeah, it says one person was charged.
I don't know how you work at a place.
Their motto should be renting from us, Hertz.
Yeah, this one person got charged $475. Not cheap to.
Man, how big was the gas tank on that electric vehicle? Jesus.
I mean, it would be kind of funny to do like malicious compliance and like fill up the back seat with gasoline. But,
yeah.
They probably wouldn't like that either.
Yeah, I have a feeling they would take you to court, and somehow in this system, I bet they would win in court.
Note to self, always get the extra insurance on an electric vehicle, and instead of returning it, just ram it into something when you're done.
That's good.
But, like, do it in their parking lot.
Yes, that way they know. Hey,
ram it into one of their other electric vehicles.
Well, and then when they come out freaking out, because you know they would come out like, oh my god, are you okay? Whatever, and just be like, no, it's okay. I got the extra insurance. We're all good, and then just leave. Just we're good. I got the extra insurance. Everything's fine.
No, you don't understand. This is a Tesla. The gas pedal got stuck.
I think we only have time for one or two more. What do you guys have any that you're
Because I referenced it earlier in passing, I do feel like we should acknowledge that, who is it, Hyundai? That fucking is working 13-year-olds 60 hours a week?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that.
I think we did talk about this a while ago, and there was I think it was a $30,000 fine from the government, but now there's a bigger suit happening. The feds are suing Hyundai for allegedly working 13-year-olds up to 60 hours per week in Alabama.
That's so evil. Like,
Yeah.
just so evil.
This is actually the future conservatives want.
Yes.
This is a libertarian wet dream.
Right.
Yeah, they're probably like, well, and then the big bad government came in and took away this 13-year-old's livelihood or something.
You don't understand. He was only working those long hours because his parents are diabetic and they couldn't afford the medication.
Man. Crazy.
Total side note, China might have invented a cure for diabetes.
Oh, yeah.
I heard about that. Yep. How are they
What
going to
else,
profit
Steve?
off of that, though? That's where I'm confused.
Yeah, you can't treat a disease that's not there anymore.
Yeah, so maybe they'll, I don't know, they might have to bury that cure or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, sarcasm aside, don't make children work 60 hours a week.
I mean, this is like...
Controversial opinion, don't make children work.
Right. The sad thing is that this is happening in all kinds of industries, like food manufacturing, like cereal companies and slaughterhouses.
In slaughterhouses.
Yeah, slaughterhouses
that's
is the really bad one.
Yeah.
It is so bleak to watch a 14 or 15-year-old being interviewed and just them having like 1,000-yard stare from having worked in a fucking slaughterhouse for 2 years already or some psycho shit. Yeah.
I want to say, I don't have the story in front of me, but there was a child that was killed in a chicken processing plant because they got sucked into a machine. So
Yeah, it was I believe I just saw the headline recently. It was a 16-year-old was pulled into a deboning machine. So yeah, pretty fucked up.
Is it too dark to make a joke about how 16-year-olds are trying to get boned, not deboned?
Well, we're here, so
yeah.
You can edit it out. I don't know. I tend to cope with things through dark humor, but that one did feel wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to take a bold stance. Cars and Comrades is an anti-child slavery podcast.
Yeah. Anti-child getting mangled podcast.
I might have some caveats, but yeah, I'm mostly in agreement.
Is this Connor the Libertarian coming back?
No, because if I was pretending to be a libertarian, I wouldn't have caveats. I would be in full disagreement. I'm kidding about the caveats, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, fair. There is that one neighbor kid that I'm not sure about, but otherwise they're fine.
Yeah, it looks like according to this article, there's a subsidiary of the car company actually did have instances of where they had hired kids as young as 12 to work in a stamping plant. It's just like, that's fucking crazy. I don't know how you hire a 12-year-old. I don't know how that happens. Well, the profit incentive, but of course.
I know that there have been a lot of changes to enable like children to work in the last handful of years, but I was under the impression that there was still like a fairly long list of things that you are not allowed to make them do. Dangerous jobs, long hours, late hours on school nights, and shit like that. Are those just all gone?
In some states, yeah.
Well, I guess not, because the feds are suing them, but it's just, yeah, it's like if you make the penalty so inconsequential that there's no actual recourse for them doing it, it just, yeah, it'll happen.
I think those who regulate it don't have the resources or do not have the desire to regulate it, right? So, like, I'll do a burnout if the cops are looking the other way, right? Like, I'll do all kinds of shit if the people who say I can't do it aren't paying attention. I think the same is true on a corporate level. Like, so this is a perfect example. Like, Hyundai pretends that they are not responsible. They go, they're clutching their pearls and saying, oh, no, we hire other companies to hire people for us. So they, like, essentially try and, like, remove the blame from themselves and go, oh, no, it's just the people we cynically hire to do this so that we have plausible deniability. So, like, in this article, they're saying Hyundai blamed third-party staffing agencies for either not properly vetting employees or outright hiring children illegally, usually migrant minors, which, I mean, it's important to note that these are kids who are usually immigrants. They're from immigrant families. of course, the most vulnerable among us. The automaker eventually cut ties with this Smart, whatever, Alabama, which is like the company name, the third party. And they appointed an independent auditor to keep tabs on SL Hyundai. Hyundai's
I'm trying to imagine that conversation. Like, I'm sorry, we can't use your services anymore. We hired you to not get caught.
Yes, exactly. That's what happened. And they got caught.
If you read the contract you signed, it clearly states that if you get caught, you will be terminated.
So, and then, of course, it continues, Hyundai's self-punishment, which is very, very good phrase to use there. I think that's very illuminating. This is, in fact, their self-punishment. Was also illuminating. Their self-punishment was worse than what the U.S. Department of Labor handed down, which was merely a $30,000 fine for the violations. So, like, yikes. Now, of course, that was them trying to save face and trying not to get any more problems there, but obviously, so there was more. It raised red flags, and they got looked into a little bit more. Is basically what's happening here.
Yeah.
So they were trying to avoid that, and it seems like they were unsuccessful in avoiding that. And it sounds like it was CNN who uncovered that there was a 13-year-old who worked on the assembly line for 60 hours a week. Seems like they got in trouble for that. A little bit.
I would almost put money on it that the only reason this happened is CNN was desperately like, we need something to make it look like we actually do journalism now.
Yeah.
Everyone's coming out hard pro-Israel, and we're getting a lot of flack for it. So dig something real up real quick.
Yeah.
I have just one more quick thing before we wrap up here, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I got two more quick things, but it's basically I'm gonna go with the headline. So
okay,
this isn't real reporting, folks. Okay, just understand.
Yeah, if you want real news, go to CNN.
Yeah. I did just want to mention, reported in the Drive. I'm sure it's reported elsewhere. As they titled it, the Toyota Supra we all begged for is going away in 2 years. Toyota and BMW broke up, so their continuing engineering relationship is going to discontinue, and it seems like Toyota is not prepared to design a new engine and drivetrain for the Supra, so it's going to go away.
Can't they just put a 2JZ in it?
That would be so great. But here's the other problem. It sounds like what did they sell? Okay, here's the other issue. Toyota only sold a total of 24,022 Supras in the United States since it launched in 2019. That's compared to over 30,000 Camrys it sold in March of 2024. The Camry, they'll sell 30,000 a month. The Supras, they have sold 24,000. Period. That's it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing where it's like, well, we're in a pretty precarious economy, and I feel like we've seen sports cars kind of go down before when the sales aren't there because the economy's not great. It was too much money, and Toyota's just not going to invest in it going forward. So, bye-bye Supra. That sucks. What Toyota is going to do is they're going to make a Miata competitor, it sounds like. So far, all we have is a concept vehicle, but from all reports I've seen, the project has been greenlit, and they're going to make a little Miata competitor that looks... The rendering from, the concept vehicle looks kind of like a Suzuki Cappuccino. That's Suzuki, right?
Yeah. It looks like a Wish.com Porsche.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more excited about this than I am the Supra. This is kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, the Supra was not something I could ever reasonably afford. This looks like something I'm like, I could buy this maybe.
Yeah.
So, I think it's, what do they call it? The Toyota will challenge the Mazda Miata directly with its S-FR sports car.
You guys know I don't really do import stuff. Wasn't everybody kind of displeased with the Supra when it came out?
I mean...
Yeah, it got a lot of...
they wanted it back, but then they released it, and they were like, this is not what we asked for. Wasn't that kind of the vibe?
Yeah,
in some ways.
Because it's basically just a BMW Z4 with a few things changed and different styling.
Yeah, so maybe the takeaway should be if somebody asks for something, don't turn it into a monkey paw wish where they don't get what they want and then blame it on them.
That's also true. That's a good point. They also made it very expensive. Like, it's hard to afford that. So it didn't do well, and we shouldn't be that surprised by it. But anyway,
You guys wanted a Supra, so that's what we named this.
Brian, what was the last thing you wanted to cover?
Yeah, so I kind of hinted at this a little bit ago, but the headline is plug-in hybrids come with an insane warranty if you live in one of these 11 states. This is just for plug-in hybrids like the Prius Prime or the Chevy Volt or the BMW i3 with range extender. And the warranty is 15 years or 150,000 miles. And that's for every single powertrain component. So that's like the battery, the engine, the electric motors, any emissions-related hardware, the gas tank, etc. But it only applies for so-called TZEV, and I think that's transitional zero emissions vehicles. The idea is that they want, sort of adoption of these low emissions plug-in hybrids so that, more people will be using these rather than pure combustion powered cars. But maybe, production of pure AVs isn't up to the level where, everyone can get one right now. But also just like other people have pointed out that there's not enough battery capacity, so you might as well spread it out over as many cars as you can and have, a smaller battery, but still have, backup generator basically to get you a little further. And, it's like, is 500 pounds of batteries worth putting in a car to get another 100 miles of range? Or do you put in a 500-pound engine and gas tank and everything, and you can, fill it up with gas and go basically as far as you want on a road trip or whatever? That's the idea of the plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, it's like your daily commute can largely be covered entirely by an EV, but now more people can have those EVs for their daily commute. And then,
Right.
You got to go a little further, you fill it up with gas once in a while. But
Yeah.
it spreads the technology to more vehicles, makes them affordable, and it's a better transition. Like, this is, I think, how you would do an EV transition if you had central planning.
Right.
As opposed to a fucking ridiculous market system like we have.
So those 11 states are California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington.
Ooh, I live in one of those states.
Yeah, me too. Again, you have to find one with this TZEV setup. And I know at least like on the Chevy Volt, that basically means it has like EGR and a few other emissions things to get it to the low emission standard for California. Because I think when they first started building the Volt in 2016, like Colorado wasn't on this emission standard, and now they are for new cars. It has to fit into that thing. So like if you buy a car that was originally sold in Colorado 10, 15 years ago, it might not fit this warranty, even though it's, a 15-year warranty. You got to like go into a database and look up the VIN and like look at the sticker on the door jamb of the car and make sure all these numbers match. So like don't just go out and buy the first Volt that you find and think it's going to be, covered under warranty. And also I will say specifically for the Volt, there's like certain parts like the battery control module like is on back order. And, people have been waiting for them to get fixed for months. Do your research before you buy any of these cars. It does make them more attractive, I will say.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Super cool.
I'm still never going to buy anything practical. I keep trying to make myself want to, and I just can't.
I understand it. I pretend I might, though. It's fun to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool practical car and stuff. That'd be sweet.
It's fun to think about the ways that I would buy something practical and make it impractical.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you heard me. I'm talking about putting coilovers on an electric car, so.
Fair enough.
Well, anything else before we wrap up here, guys? Or I think that's good.
Nope, I think that's all we had.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, check out our social media. Send us an email if you have any ideas. Oh, yeah, what we're going to say, like, if you have any ideas for future episodes or if you have a topic that you know a little bit about and you want to be on the podcast, Or if you just want to, help us out with research, give us a little tip.
Or if you want to buy any of our dumb bullshit cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can email us right at carsandcomrades@gmail.com. And then, hey, if you like the show, go ahead and give us a rate or review on your podcast app or whatever. Just say we're good. Yeah, we'd appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. And I think by the time this comes out, Google podcast thing has shut down. But I think we only had like 6 listeners on that anyways. So hopefully they found another way to listen to this.
Bye, 6 listeners. Bye.
We'll miss you.
That's most of our listenership, but
yeah,
whatever.
Have a good one. Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You can tell a revolutionary, but you can't tell a revolution.
Poverty. 500,000 Americans at any given time are sleeping out under bridges and in gutters. Is that not violence to force a human being to sleep in the fucking street while the rulers that dictate this entire system have 4 or 5 or 6 fucking houses? That's violence.
If you ain't first, you're last. You know? What I'm talking about? That phrase, trademark, not to use it up Ricky Bobby.
There's a joke that circulated in Russia in 1992, after the first year of the free market paradise, and it went like this. Question: what did capitalism accomplish in 1 year that communism could not do in 70 years? Answer: make communism look good.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Much of what has been said about communism in this country is simply not true.
She insulted my authority. Yeah. And that's nothing but pure and simple old-fashioned communism.
The U.S. government is the largest terrorist organization on planet Earth, and they have no right to wag their finger at anybody over anything having to do with ethics, morality, or human rights. America is a human rights violation in and of itself.